Hey everyone, Nubkeks here, and in today's video, I'm giving you my reactions to some of the highlights, some of my choice moments from Preach's interview with the game director for World of Warcraft, Ian Hazakostas. I'm obviously watching this, the full VOD here, on Preach's Twitch channel. I'm sure he will be uploading it as soon as possible. It's probably already up by the time my video goes live, because I'm going to be editing all these different bits. But yeah, it'll probably be up on his channel. I'll put a link in a pinned comment as soon as I can do that. And yeah, so feel free to go and watch the full thing on his channel, because I'm not going to cover everything, just the highlights. Let's dive in.
Shadowlands delayed. 9.1, we don't have a release date yet. I just wanted you to talk to that to get us started about any issues you guys have had with development or what's been happening over your side, just to fill us in a little bit there.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that this is not the ideal release cadence for our content, for our game. You know, I think we would prefer, frankly, to have. I prefer to be sitting here right now talking to you, announcing that Chains of Domination is coming out in just a couple weeks, and you have a bunch of new raid content to jump into and a new zone to explore and all the rest. But we've definitely been playing catch up a little bit. Lots of challenges just adapting to remote work and dealing with the pandemic as a whole.
I'm going to be a little bit mean. I'm going to be a little bit mean here. I will say two things. The first one is the nice bit. Actually, it's not mean. But it's that, yeah, okay, obviously, fair enough. It's the global pandemic. Literally, there are slowdowns everywhere across the gaming industry. So that is fully expected. And obviously, Blizzard needs to be given some leeway for being slow on making content for Shadowlands. They've been slowed down. That's fair enough. But the other part of it is, even if there was no pandemic, would Shadowlands have been a rapid pace of content? I don't know. It's not like Blizzard has not struggled with content before. Legion was great, but Warlords was Warlords. And yeah, BFA was also pretty slow. So,
So I know I've seen some of the prognosticators and maybe even doomsayers wondering, like, is this going to be like Warlords? Is there just one tier? No, we have... there's going to be something epic and mind-blowing up next after this, and that's coming along great. Can't wait to talk about it more later in the year.
Okay, so that's 9.2 stuff, I would imagine.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Well, I will say, I've been testing the 9.1 PTR.
Interesting. I'm going to jump in right there. The question that is on my mind is the unsaid stuff. Is that, yes, 9.2, okay, that's fine. What about 9.3? That's my question. Is there going to be a 9.3? Because I always sort of figured I would have been shocked if there was no 9.2. But the way I'm looking at it is, okay, patch 9.1, Chains of Domination, is so late. This is by far the longest 9.0 patch, which again is probably fair enough. But where are they going to squeeze these other patches into? I'm not really seeing it. Again, my strong suspicion is they're going to do this patch 9.1. I think they're going to put a lot of work into a big patch 9.2, and I think that's going to be it. I think that will be it. I do not think there's going to be a 9.3. That's my thought. Ian hasn't specifically said that there will be a 9.3. So yeah, that's genuine. I think that's what's going to happen, because I mean, they got to start working on the next expansion. In theory, I know some of you are thinking it because it makes sense in a sense, but you go, okay, well, they're a few months late bringing out patch 9.1. That's fine. We'll just have, the final patch. The final patch of an expansion is always like a year long. It's way too long. We'll just have that be a few months shorter. In fact, in some ways, that's better. Nice short final patch. No big deal. I think the issue with that is that I don't think those final patches are that long by choice. I think that's literally how long it takes them to make an expansion. And if they're already working from behind, if they're already struggling to produce content, working from home and dealing with a pandemic, I just don't see them being able to squeeze out a 9.1 in whatever, let's say 2 months from now, then squeeze out a 9.2 and a 9.3 and the next expansion. If they're going to hit that 2-yearly cycle, I don't see that happening. And also, again, I suspect that in terms from a business, from a financial perspective, I think that they would much rather scrap a patch and have a smaller expansion than delay an expansion release. I don't think they're going to do that. especially I think with classic WoW having expansions effectively now every other year. I think it's going to be classic WoW expansion 1 year, a regular WoW expansion the other year. I'm pretty sure they have that set up for the next decade at least. So yeah, that's my thoughts there.
The zone itself, though, is still really bare bones, as it's supposed to be the City of Secrets. We haven't really seen any of that yet. We've just seen a basic daily quest hub. Can you talk a little bit on what this represents? Is this just the starter, or is there a lot to come, or is this kind of what we should expect?
No, there's a lot more that's still in development that will be dropping onto PTR in the coming weeks. We want to get our PTR up as soon as we're ready to start getting useful feedback on something. And in this case, it's a lot of the story quests, some of the class changes, getting that raid testing loop spun up and working out the kinks there so we can be on track to get feedback on all the bosses. Korthia is going to have a number of other daily quests, rares, zone events, and just a general reward loop that's going to be added to it.
Yeah, to me, this makes a lot of sense. I mean, I did a video preview there on Korthia, and I showed you literally everything that was there, which is very little so far. But I actually think this is totally fine. I think it makes sense what he's saying. They want to get the PTR up. It's a very early build of the PTR, but they want to get people testing the intro quest. Now, I didn't show you guys the intro quest because it's spoilers, but the intro quests were, for the most part, really good. So that stuff is in there. It looks great. Like the zone itself is there. It looks great. Some of the extra areas in the mall, that sort of stuff. Obviously, we've already done 2 bosses of raid testing. Testing last week was postponed because of an issue with the PTR build. So that's unfortunate. But I mean, that's also a good reason for bringing this stuff out early, I guess. But yeah, I'm totally fine with it. I am totally fine with it. Yeah, I think it makes sense. I'm glad to hear that there's going to be all this new stuff in Korthia, though. Rares, obviously, events. Yeah, just more stuff to do in there. And then a bunch of rewards to earn and all of that. So that you actually feel like there's plenty of content to keep coming back for. I think that's good. I still don't know if the zone will blow me away, but it seems like a solid zone. That's kind of my thoughts on it. Solid zone. Seems okay. It's really the raid and the dungeon, though, that are the biggest draws for me personally.
Any update on when we're probably going to get to? A lot of them are designed to be paired up. Is that like a 9.2 things, maybe? Because obviously when people have Covenant ones, they would probably like that as well as their class one. Alongside it.
Yep, I think that's certainly something that's on the table. Not planning on it for Chains of Domination, but it's a space we're likely to explore towards the end of the expansion.
9.2 2 legendaries confirmed.
The and stuff, but I personally am a huge supporter of Torghast. Like the premise of it is fantastic. We know from the data mining there's lots of changes you're making there. I would absolutely adore to know more about what's happening with Torghast and what you're doing, because it's the big replayable feature of the Shadowlands, right? What can we expect happening there?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in this next PTR build, you should start to see a lot of those. So I mean, fundamentally, I think you say Torghast in passing. I think there's something to that, frankly. It's one of the fundamental problems with Torghast, as the team sees it, is that last fall, we made a bunch of changes because the original iteration of Torghast was so binary when it came to success or failure that going through a full Torghast run, getting to floor 6, and finding that you couldn't kill the last boss and walking away with nothing to show for it was something that was such a viscerally frustrating experience that it was, just kind of a table flip moment for a wide range of players. And the system at the same time was also incentivizing you, like, no, you need to get your Soul Asher, you're falling behind, keep pushing to the highest floor layer that you can do, even if you're not quite geared for it. And across a wide range of the player base, people were just having a miserable time. And that led, because failure was so punishing, what we did in December was we just nerfed the crap out of Torghast and brought things to a point where basically everyone wins. But we want something going forward that actually lets us make it more challenging without being as punishing. And that's the vision for Torghast going forward.
Good.
So step 1 was getting rid of the death counter entirely, where, so there's no Tower Grew anymore. The Tower Grew is off in the Sanctum of Domination, soon to be defeated by a raid group full of adventurers. And instead, to have more of a granular scoring system. When you go into a Torghast layer, when you go into layer 9, you'll see some new UI elements. You'll see that you have, long-term a rating. There are these 5 gems or stars, whatever you want to call them, that measure your overall performance on your Torghast run. There's a meter that is measuring your activity. It's kind of like, think of like being on a hot streak in a game like Guitar Hero or whatever,
Yeah.
where if you're moving quickly, you're killing stuff, you're getting bonuses and racking up perks as you go. You want to balance. Are you avoiding death? Are you being efficient? Are you exploring the floors? And the more successful you are, the higher your overall rating for your run is going to be. You'll always get your Soul Ash at the end. But unlocking access to the next layer will require performance at a certain level. Similar to Mythic Plus there, right? If you think back and if you think to...
Okay. I like this. So Torghast, you'll go in, you just play through your run. You're expected that you will win. You will pass the run. You will beat the run. You will get your Soul Ash, but it's about getting your score rating. And to unlock the next floor, you need to get a certain number of stars on your run. Okay, that makes sense. And then, of course, you'd be expected then, because you beat the previous floor with enough stars that you would be able to beat then the follow-up floor fairly reasonably. Yeah, okay. That makes sense to me. And that actually sounds kind of fun. So you're going around Torghast. Obviously, dying is bad, but, going collecting more powers, just constantly... not rushing, but being on the move, killing things at a steady pace, to have that score. I actually think that sounds fun. I think that sounds great. Yeah, I think that's cool. Like, you don't need to chase the score overly much, but it's open for people to go in and get the best score possible. Yeah. You know what? I think it's good. I think that's good.
The other piece that we're adding is one of the most traditional elements of roguelike or roguelite games, which is a separate meta progression that is specific to Torghast, sort of a Torghast-specific talent tree.
Cool.
Like visions for...
Yeah, and exactly. In 9.0 at launch, some of those things were on Venari, tied to Maw reputation and Maw gameplay, and there was a little bit of a disconnect there between your Torghast gameplay and what you were doing out in the world. Here, if you don't have the most successful Torghast run in the world, you're still going to walk away with some extra tower knowledge that you can spend to, unlock everything from power upgrades to convenience perks, like just being able to auto loot things around you in the tower, and more to help you on your next run.
God. Awesome. I love that. Actually, that was the small thing that I realized was a bigger thing than I thought it was. One of my guildies pointed it out, but she said that, in Torghast, like you have to stop to loot everything. You have to stop and click loot. You have to run back to the corpses and click to loot them. And it is a small thing that just slows everything down. It slows it down. You don't have that really in other roguelikes. Like, in Hades, you just keep going pretty much. So, or like you auto in Diablo, like the gold drops on the ground and you auto pick it up when you walk near. So I think this is good. That's good. I love the idea of okay, you know what? Let me make this more spicy by making it controversial. I love the idea of talent trees, like traditional WoW talent trees. I think they work super well in this context, in the Visions of N'Zoth context from patch 8.3, where the talent tree is tied in to a particular patch. Artifact weapon trees are a similar thing, and they basically measure your... It's like effectively a linear progression system through a patch where you constantly get power, but there's choices in terms of which branch do I go down first, which route do I take first, when do I get my powers. You can prioritize them, you can target them, when they're coming, you get them. I think that's what talent trees do super well. So I think it's perfect if they bring in a talent tree like this for Torghast. You over a few weeks, you work through your talent tree, you get those power-ups, you can aim for them, work towards them, then you see those pay off in your gameplay. I think that's fantastic. What I don't think traditional talent trees, because I know people often ask, like, oh, bring traditional talent trees back to WoW. I think what they work very well as a progression system. I don't think those things do anything, or they're 90% progression and only 10% customization, right? The idea that you're going to switch around your talents and really customize your character with this tree just doesn't really work out. It's never really worked in WoW. You've got your cookie cutter tree. In Classic, to go back to Classic WoW, is I think a perfect example. You have your talents that you're choosing as you're leveling up, and like it's really fun to work towards those milestones to get like whatever Seal of Command or whatever on a paladin. It's cool to get that stuff. It's a cool leveling experience. It's a cool progression experience. And then maybe you swap to a cookie cutter build then at max level, which is your cookie cutter, I don't know, whatever holy paladin build, and then you kind of stick with it. 90% is progression. And in terms of customization, there's not much. Like once you've got through the talent tree, it's kind of done. Is the problem with that system? By the way, I don't think modern WoW talents succeed either. Yeah, I don't think they succeed either. Again, they end up being very cookie cutter, even being a much smaller, simpler system. Anyway, that's my thoughts. The Nubkeks special on talent trees, on what they're actually good for. The unpopular opinion.
I mean, I think certainly we're looking to add more powers. There are also extra, more randomized modifiers to the runs that you'll see when you get in there. Both some negative, kind of like Keystone affixes, sort of, but also perks that are known as blessings. So we're looking to add more variability, more variety. I think our focus in Shards of Domination, in Chains of Domination, though, was revamping the basic scoring system and progression, and then we want to build on this new foundation. We want to make.
Okay, that's cool. I wonder if this does well, if that could be something they bring into Mythic Plus as well, right? I think there's negative affixes in Torghast like Mythic Plus, but there's also positive ones like Blessings. Immediately where my mind goes is, hey, if people love this, they could bring these positive things into Mythic Plus, which personally I think would be really cool as well. And really spice things up and could open up, again, more class variety in Mythic Plus, which is a big, big problem. Try getting a Mythic Plus group on, I don't know, a Fire Mage, and then go in and try get a Mythic Plus group on a Beast Mastery Hunter or something. Good luck. Good luck. It could be cool if there were positive effects that, opens up new, different classes and stuff to being good. That'd be cool. So, again, that's another, I think this another great sounding idea, to be honest. It's a great sounding idea.
So we're looking at ways of adding bonuses to select pieces of gear that you earn from Sanctum of Domination, and leveling up those bonuses by doing the raid itself, and exclusively by doing the raid itself over the course of the tier. Now, some of these bonuses may only work in the raid. The general goal is for them to be far more effective in the raid than outside. There may be some additional power that's added, but that's not terrible in game-wide. But that's not terribly different than unique, raid trinkets or procs on items or things that are slightly better. Mythic Plus has a bunch of really cool items in that space too. And with the PvP item level system for PvP, we feel confident that that the extra 13 eye levels that you get in PvP content from the Conquest gear will keep that gear the all-around best for that type of content. We're trying.
Okay, interesting. Okay. So, gear from the raid that has specific unique effects, much stronger within the raid. You level up those effects, make them more powerful by doing the raid over the course of the tier. Yeah. No, I think this is a great idea. Effectively, the purpose of these, there's a twofold purpose to types of gear like this. I think Preach, was it Preach there mentioned, or was it Ian? I think it was Preach mentioned the Uldir system, which is a really good example where the way it worked was that just every week in Uldir, there was just a general Uldir power that got stronger, right? So long as you had an Uldir, a piece of Azerite armor from the Uldir raid on, it would give you, I think you maybe had to choose the power. I can't remember, but essentially every single week your power got stronger and stronger. So the first thing it does is it just makes you feel gradually more powerful over the course of the tier. You feel like your character is constantly getting stronger, which is a good feeling to have. Even if you're not necessarily getting new gear, that the power that is part of the gear is getting stronger. So that's good. And then the other thing is that it is effectively a more fun way to nerf raid bosses than just nerfing raid bosses. Because, for your typical, everyday raid team, really, these raid bosses are very hard. It can be a real struggle to overcome them. You can even get hard stuck. That sure happens, right? It does happen. And you're going to run out of gear upgrades as well. That can only keep going so long. So if there's just, every single week, you just, your power in the raid gets stronger every single week, just from some flat power source. Again, in patch 8.3, in the last major raid tier that we had in Nyalotha, it was your corruption, right? You could equip more corruption. Like your limit was slowly going up every week. You could equip more corruption, made the bosses easier, because it feels bad to kill a boss after it's nerfed. That happened to us on Stone Legion Generals, right? We did 99.9% of the progress. We were going to kill it the next day, and then they nerfed it, and you kind of go, oh, no, feels bad. Right? You don't want to kill the boss when it's nerfed. So it's a good way to counterbalance that, where you keep the challenge there for world first raiders, you keep the challenge there for the really, really competitive guys, and then for your casual everyday team, they have this scaling power that is going to soft nerf, pseudo nerf the content. It means that you guys progressing just throughout the whole patch. It just gives an extra way, an extra boost to help you reach your goals and get that stuff. That doesn't take away from guys that are, that are being super competitive. So I think that is good. And yeah, I mean, realistically as well, what he's saying about it potentially being the best gear. Yeah, I actually agree with his point as well that, hey, look, if your best trinket is from Mythic Plus, you got to go do, I had to do that. I mostly raid, but I went and got a soul letting ruby, grounded out, upgraded it with valor, and then it dropped from my Mythic Plus cache. Then after, I've got a Mythic Plus trinket and a PvP trinket. They're my two trinkets for raiding right now, which isn't super ideal, but at all, I don't know. To be honest, at the same time, it doesn't majorly bother me. It's just sort of something that you have to do. That's the way it's going to stay from the sounds of it. Interesting, again, he mentioned obviously the PvP eye level, that your PvP gear is going to upgrade in eye level when you're engaged in PvP, which should make it better in most circumstances to other gear. But I think it is possible that for some specs, you could still have PvE trinkets be better, or PvE pieces of gear potentially be better in PvP still, or potentially some of that PvP gear, even though it's not being upgraded in raiding or Mythic Plus or whatever, could still be better. There could be some overlap. But yeah, it's really no different than what it has been for ages, I guess. So, meh.
Trying to get to.
Okay. I can't avoid this now. What do you mean by class sets exactly?
I mean, good old. Hey, it's a raid zone. There's a rogue set. There's a warrior set. There's a mage set.
Do they carry any bonuses?
I mean, that's presumably part of sets. I think
that's what I heard.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Cool,
right.
Great. And he also confirmed that was for 9.2, basically, not for 9.1, obviously, but for 9.2. So that's cool. It's good to have a definitive statement that stuff is coming. I'm going to be slightly controversial again. So for me, the thing that I love about class sets, and the reason that I'm excited they're coming back, is the transmog. I love the idea of having your class-specific transmog. Just, it's a reason to play other characters. It's a reason to get excited for your character, for your class, for your spec, and to collect that transmog and feel cool about it. I like that. For me, the powers on the sets, don't give a shit. I could not give two shits. Like, for me, in fact, it would almost work better if they were just necklaces. Like, I thought about this. It would be a good example. The necklace slot. Effectively, it's just boring. It's just another item slot. It doesn't do anything, really. Just make the necklace slot have powers on it. Hey, cool, great. Go get your class necklace from the raid. Doesn't get in the way of having to equip certain pieces of armor and all the downsides of tier sets. So I prefer that, whatever. I mean, honestly, I think generally some tier set bonuses have been really good in the past, and then some have been really boring. It's a real mixed bag. I really like the essences system in 8.2. I really like the essences, which a lot of people won't. So there you go. I'm saying unpopular things this video. I don't care. Yeah, tier sets. Love the transmog. Don't really care about the spec bonuses. They could easily include that on a necklace slot, whatever, on rings from the raid that would give you class-specific perks. They could easily include it in that way and have it be less annoying. Or have them be enchants. I don't know, get enchants and just enchant them on anything. PvP gear, Mythic Plus gear, raid gear, whatever. Yeah, but I like the transmog.
Now we've seen the metrics on how the Covenant's played out. Are you surprised by how players made their choice versus what you hoped would happen? And just what is the internal feeling now if you're going to go further in this direction with people making these kinds of choices, or have you changed your mind?
They're making Covenant legendary, so yeah, they are. They're doubling
really
down.
Our goal is for everyone to be a Night Fae, so we think that things are proceeding wonderfully, and eventually
luckily,
we'll achieve our goal of fairy dominance by the end of the expansion.
Well, the Warlocks are there. 98% of them are Night Fae.
There's ongoing balance there, and 9.1 is also a chance to do some of that. Overall, though, I would say we're really happy with the Covenant system as an expression of Shadowlands, as an expression of the identity of Shadowlands, these 4 distinct realms, narrative paths, and as much headache as it's caused, I know, to portions of the high-end community, we've heard a wide range of feedback, very positive feedback about the feeling, the choice, about the feeling of identification with the Covenant, particularly across alts. It's something that largely, if I could go back in time a year, we would proceed down the same path. Now, that's in no way to say that, okay, this is the thing we're going to do in every expansion going forward. I don't think so.
Okay, I want to jump in. Let's double down. Like Blizzard doubling down with Covenant legendaries. I'm doubling down on saying things that'll probably piss people off in this video. I actually like Covenants. I like them. I think they're fun. I think it is the more interesting question for me, and I think it's actually really hard to answer, is what does the general player base think about it? Because obviously in like the forums and Reddit and stuff, or like whatever, people complain, but like, that they're literally, they are, forums and stuff are outputs for complainers essentially. So I don't know. I think it's really hard to measure, genuinely hard to measure, whether people like something or not. Because like, yeah, for me, like I genuinely like it. And it's hard to say, even like from people I play the game with, it's even hard to judge, because I know they complain excessively about Covenants, but I mean, I could literally hand them a check for like €1 million and they'd complain excessively about that. I mean, I don't know. It doesn't really say anything about the thing that they're actually complaining about. It's just what they do. So I don't know. It's hard to judge, but for me, I don't give a shit what Covenant I'm in. I think they're all kind of cool. I like the sets and stuff. I like the vibe. It's kind of fun for me. I genuinely don't really care. And I kind of, adds a bit for me for alt. I kind of like having an alt in the different Covenants and seeing that sort of story and collecting that set and just being in a different zone most of the time. I like it. Yeah, I like it. I don't care what you think and you think I'm stupid. I like it, and that's allowed. God damn it, that is allowed.
And so the idea was, okay, well, if we're not comfortable with permanent, expansions and additions to players' characters, what if we do temporary ones? What if we pull out all the stops? And Legions I think the Legion system was probably the most successful of all of these, for a couple of reasons. It was certainly very fantasy forward, but also, frankly, it was new.
Yeah,
people hadn't people hadn't understood where it was headed. People didn't get their Ashbringer and think to themselves, well, wait, what's going to happen 3 years from now? How are they going to fix this? How are they going to move on from this? It was just, no, I'm getting all these cool powers. I am getting stronger, doing awesome things with my weapon, doing awesome things with my class hall. And then we saw at the end of Legion when we had to burn out your artifact because it was literally more than doubling your power and adding a dozen different effects to your character that were.
Yeah, I you know what? I think for me with borrow power stuff like that, the biggest question is definitely whether or not the borrow power is cool, and if it feels fun, and if it's enjoyable, and it makes sense. Again, I don't have a big issue with this like a lot of people do. I think it's fine. It's like he's saying, you can't keep adding stuff to the classes. You have to take stuff away at times as well. So having a big new power system in an expansion, I think a great example is Azerite armor, where Azerite armor as a replacement for Legion legendaries and your Legion artifact weapon and artifact powers was so underwhelming, it just kind of sucked. So that was borrow power done really wrong. I think getting rid of like the corruptions and like your essences and stuff from BFA, moving into Shadowlands and getting the Covenant system with the conduits and the Covenant powers, I think, and the legendaries, I think that's actually been pretty good, right? I think that's felt pretty good. Like, being a balanced druid with Convoke the Spirits and the Balance of All Things legendary, and like whatever, Naya Soulbind, like that stuff is very strong. It feels very impactful, and hey, it's an awesome looking new ability. It's a really powerful legendary effect. I actually think that they succeeded generally at that pretty well. Like the borrow power for Shadowlands feels powerful. When we get 2 legendaries, like comparing it like for like, start of Legion had problems with getting legendaries and all of that. Like the Torghast is Torghast, but at least you can guarantee your legendary. It's good. By the end of Shadowlands, I mean, we'll see what they add in. We will see what is there. But going in with like 2 legendaries and a bunch of covenant powers and stuff like that, I think it's pretty cool. And then you lose it all at the end of the expansion. You get the next thing. If the next thing is cool enough, I think it could be okay. But yeah, it's really the question of making it actually good and impactful, because that's where BFA really fell short, was that it didn't feel good. Although, that being said, I personally really liked essences. I played Shadow Priest and Havoc Demon Hunter, and essences on those classes were pretty fun. More so Shadow Priest. Shadow Priest was more fun than Havoc. But yeah, Shadow Priest is particularly good because you had the focused laser thing, right? The big giant laser beam you could channel for a few seconds, but you could stack that with the end of your void form where you got loads of crit. So you get like guaranteed crit lasers. So that was cool if you timed it right. You had the Memory of Lucid Dreams, which would double your insanity generation and really let you prolong your void form and make it super fast paced there at the end. So that was also like really great and badass. Then you had more basic options, and you could obviously tweak all the little side ones as well. But you like the simple option like the Guardian, which was just a big dude you summoned in, and it was basically just a damage steroid on a 3-minute cooldown. So it's more straightforward, less gameplay intensive, and stuff like that. It actually worked pretty well. It was quite fun. I liked it. I like switching around the essences. So I thought that was good, but obviously that took like a year of BFA to get to that point. And essences had their own problem in terms of acquisition on alts in particular, but yeah, for me, my thoughts, unpopular thoughts once again. I do not mind borrow power. It makes sense why they do it. I think it's fine so long as the borrow powers, so long as the new borrow power is powerful enough and cool enough that losing the old ones doesn't feel totally terrible.
Raider Friends was obviously the effect of raid cooldowns, individual buffs. This covers a lot of ground, Ian. This is from PI and certainly Anti-Magic Zone. Especially from the melee friends out there who look at the very limited raid spots they get amongst all those specs.
True.
Yet when something like AMZ is just as good as it is, 2 of those are taken instantly by DKs because they're just making the fight so much easier. And I know there's been some back and forth in previous interviews about we don't want to just give everybody a raid buff. We don't just want to do X and Y, but it's certainly causing frustration, I think is the word we're looking for. I'm wondering what your internal thinking on this is.
AMZ is too good. That's,
oh no! Sorry, Death Knights. I'm so sorry.
I mean,
I never saw it coming. Yeah, okay. Obvious. I actually saw this on Twitter. I saw some DKs being like, fuck this, man. Again, it's that obvious. I mean, honestly, AMC getting nerfed is as surprising to me as Fire Mage AoE getting nerfed. As in, I would literally eat my hat. I'd fall over backwards and eat my hat if they didn't nerf it. AMC is way too strong. So.
You know, you convinced me. I thought it was fine, but then you stated the case
AMC
so eloquently.
You said, Mike, was it?
And okay, problem solved. Nerf AMZ. You know, I mean, I was. This is something we talk about a bunch. I think I was watching.
It's obviously overtuned.
I think Max had a video recently on raid comps and melee slots, and you know he was also making the point of like, yeah, there's this finite number of melee slots, which separately we would like to increase, but that's more of an encounter design question. And you're currently allocating half of them to DKs. Having a tool like AMZ is awesome. Having tools like Darkness and other things are awesome. I think AMZ is just
right.
Something like that potentially, yes. And rogues, I cool. think, are lacking actually in raid utility.
Agreed.
And could use rogues can definitely use something there. I think rogues have it covered in dungeons, but when it comes down to, you know, currently looking at your raid comp, there aren't enough reasons to say, oh no, we can't sit the rogue because blank. Like, what is that blank? There needs to be something.
Our rogue quit halfway through the tier. He quit halfway through Castle Nathria. And the other one switched to Warrior. Yeah, we had 2 rogues at the start of the tier. They're both gone now. I will say Assassination is blasting single target, so that's a good reason to bring them. But obviously being, you know, a good damage spec, it's not the most reliable way to get brought to a fight compared to being a, you know, like a Warlock with all the utility they bring, for example. Warlocks are often have at least one spec which is extremely strong, but even if they were all terrible specs, you'd still bring one because Gateway, Healthstones, Curses, anything like that, it's just irreplaceable, really. That's cool. Again, like I said, AMZ makes sense that they would nerf it. I think that's fair. Even just nerf it by like 5% on the total, I mean, would probably be okay. And I don't know, in terms of group raid buffs, and raid slots. I actually think there's too many. I don't know. I would rather them gone. I get the purpose of raid buffs is to ensure a certain degree of class variety. That, okay, every raid will have a DK, will have a monk, will have a mage, a priest, blah, 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 blah. I get that. I don't know. It's a tough one. Giving raid buffs to everyone, giving raid buffs to no one, they're all kind of shitty options. I don't know. I think it works good. It works well in dungeons. But man, it's a struggle to make raid buffs work in raids. They're good in dungeons.
With AMZ, it's just a question of that.
Good, he watches.
He kind of took it as a given that, yeah, there's like 5 melee spots, right? You have 14 DPS, you basically have 5 melee and 9 ranged.
Yeah.
And then within that, this is the calculus. Like, we need to raise that number. And one of the questions that we're asking...
I actually think... Yeah. Our mythic Denathrius comp is 5 melee, 9 ranged. Yep, it is. It is exactly what it is. Yeah, it's true. I don't know. I definitely think that they could design the fights to not be as punishing to melee. That's the issue really for raiding, is that they make it so it is more punishing to melee. I think that Mythic Plus is a great comparison actually here, where I believe, I didn't play too much in Legion, but I believe in Legion that ranged was generally preferred for Mythic Plus. Certainly in Shadowlands so far, ranged has been preferred for Mythic Plus. In BFA, melee was preferred for Mythic Plus. So a lot of it is to do in terms, now some of that is with AoE cap, right? But then at the same time, a lot of it also comes down to encounter design. Like in BFA, there were lots of kicks that needed to be interrupted. They were super dangerous, so control was very important, which is why rogues were insanely dominant for ages, because they literally bought the best control. So you'd have like even 2 rogues sometimes, you know. That was a real thing. Whereas in Shadowlands, there's nowhere near as many things that need to be interrupted, which means you can bring ranged with worse kicks, but there's loads of horrible shit on the ground to not stand in, which makes melee worse. So that's definitely part of it. So they could definitely look at that for raid for sure. I guess it must be difficult, because I don't know, because raid is nearly always dominated by ranged. It nearly always is. You just bring more range despite there being more melee specs in the game. So for poor old melee specs, you are fighting over a smaller number of slots. Yeah. Actually, I haven't even watched that Max video. I need to watch that.
You know, the combat team and the encounter team is, how can we make it the right answer to bring 7, ideally 8 melee? Right? If you have 14 DPS, bring 7 of each. Right? Why isn't that the starting point, and then you tweak it one way or the other? And in that world, it'd be much easier to justify a much more diverse raid composition.
The problem is that the big problem is that they often have raid mechanics, I guess, where you need to spread out within a raid space. Like your raid team physically needs to spread, so that whatever, bombs don't explode on top of you, or you drop pools in reasonable spots, that sort of thing. And the thing about ranged is ranged can play at ranged. Ranged can also go into melee. Like a ranged can stand in melee just fine. A melee player, though, they can't really go to ranged, or well, they can, but you're not going to kill the boss anytime quickly. So, yeah. And this is the problem, right? This is the problem that, like, if you look at Nyalotha, all they had to do in Nyalotha really was Il'gynoth. Even if all the other fights had been fine, the fact that one of the final bosses, I think it was the third last boss out of 12, so yeah, boss 10 out of 12, was a incredibly punishing boss for melee. If the boss is going to be that difficult, or is expected to be that difficult, obviously Il'gynoth had like weird strategy that made it super easy, but the world first kills didn't know about it. But yeah, if you are expecting a boss that late in the raid to be that hard, and it is punishing for melee, then it doesn't matter if the other bosses are fine for melee. Just that one boss being punishing will just make you go, well, we can't afford to gear up that many melee, and then sit them all out, and we won't have enough geared range players, so we'll just bring the ranged. And I can't even think of a situation in raid where there has been a situation where you go, man, we have too many range geared and not enough melee. That just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. And again, all it takes is one difficult boss in a raid to completely color that raid.
Questions that people desperately want me to ask. How do you feel the AoE cap is working out? overall in terms of Mythic Plus? Do you think it was a good idea, or is there some room for maneuver there? Because it does feel pretty horrible. If certainly even everybody from Transmoggers to high Mythic Pluses do feel kind of awkward with the way the AoE cap is actually implemented.
Yeah, I mean, there's definite room for continued evolution there. I mean, certainly for legacy content farming and things like that. That's not really the point. This wasn't a new design. In many ways, this was going back to how abilities like Whirlwind and other things have traditionally worked. I think the way Mythic Plus, there's a lot that we're talking about, in terms of the dynamic of Mythic Plus in general. Certainly, there's this feedback loop of uncapped AoE being so potentially strong if you can do giant pulls. Therefore, the way to approach dungeons is to do giant pulls, but then also you can't survive face tanking those pulls. So now the way to tank is to kite everything. There's this kind of general feedback loop there. We still hold to the goal of niches and wanting there to be people who excel at 4-target cleave, at 2-target cleave, people who excel at more traditional 10-target AoE or whatever else. And I think we're moving in the right direction, but we have a lot of work still to do. And certainly a world where uncapped AoE is still king, but only a handful of people get it is not where we want to end up.
Good.
No,
Yeah, I don't know. My feeling, like, I agree with the goal. I think the goal is fine. Where, okay, some specs are really, like, I play Shadow Priest right now. Really, really, really good. It's probably the best single target spec in the game. But if you're single target spec, you're fucking shite for AoE. Like for Denathrius Mythic, I'm just like a tourist for phase 1. I'm just hanging out with the boys. Let them fucking do it. Then it's grand, but then it can pop off in P3 for a single target execute, right? Just blasting the thing down in single target. I think that's fine. Or having like Destro Warlock being really good 2-target cleave. That's cool. So I think that's fine. I definitely think they're way too binary with the AoE cap is my issue. I'm actually kind of surprised that they haven't thrown it away. I'm actually kind of surprised that they haven't thrown it away. And just whatever, like, make the abilities themselves powerful. Like, okay, give everyone uncapped AoE, but Starfall is just really good. It just scales really well. It's just the most powerful uncapped AoE ability, like in terms of consistent AoE or something like, or Fire Mage or whatever. You know what I mean? But like the strict target cap where like some specs just literally can't hit more than 5 targets is just kind of weird. And I'm just, it's been such an unpopular decision. I'm kind of surprised they haven't thrown it away. I am surprised they haven't thrown it away. But yeah, that's what I would do. I probably just get rid of it, whatever. Everyone's AoE is uncapped, but like, yeah, give Havoc style abilities. Like, okay, if your spec is really good single target, you have some really good single target abilities to just be more effective there. Just have 2-target specs, have some really powerful 2-target abilities, like Havoc for Destruction Warlock, yeah, Starfall for big AoE, that sort of thing. Like, give people powerful abilities that target them towards their niche and let those abilities determine it, more than sort of weird arbitrary target caps. We'll see.
Scaling gets pretty wacky on that.
Yeah.
Very quickly. Very, very quickly. One last question for you. What is World Quest 2.0? Because I know it sounds very memey, but genuinely, I'm very confused. I say I did all these alt characters recently, and I couldn't think of a single reason to go and do World Quests or Callings. It was very off-putting. They just seemed to be longer, is how it felt. Was that like something that didn't get explored fully in development, and there's more to come there? Or was the idea just for less but longer?
It's not really fewer so much as I think one of the biggest things that has to do with the place or lack thereof of world quests in the current endgame loop is the lack of artifact power. I don't know that anyone is clamoring for the return of that.
No.
But it always felt like, going back to Legion, that was the primary reason. Like in Legion, you needed world quests for artifact power from your emissary cache as well, and early on for legendaries and the chance at legendaries from your emissary. In BFA, it was pretty similar. If you were trying to get AP, you'd clear the map. Right now it's the best way to get anima, but that is pretty much an entirely optional system, and some folks engage with it, some folks don't.
The problem for me was just that it was so little. It was so little anima that you're sitting there at the start of the expansion, and I was like, oh yeah, I would love to get these fucking transmogs and mounts and stuff. How much is it? It's like 5,000 anima. Oh, okay. How many anima do I get for a world quest? 30, 35. But just fucking, I would say a lot of people did what I did and said, you know what? I think I can do without the transmogs, to be honest. Maybe I'll get them eventually, but yeah, I think I just won't bother. That to me is the problem. That to me is the problem. Yeah. But yeah, there you go, guys. I think that's pretty much the main highlights for me, and my sort of thoughts and reactions. And controversial opinions, I guess, is also what a lot of this turned into. Let me know what you think, though. Obviously, I did not discuss at all everything in the interview. But let me know if there was anything I didn't discuss or just your general thoughts. We shall see. I will say I'm certainly interested to see what he was talking about with Korthia and like just fleshing out the zone and actually adding in new stuff. That's going to keep us busy. I think that'll be nice. I'm very excited to see the new mega dungeon. Very excited to test more of the raid. And yeah, like you said, Torghast being updated actually sounds good. Sounds really good. So I'm looking forward to that, which should be out this week, I hope, on the PTR. So hopefully be testing that as well. So yeah, we shall see. We shall see. But thanks for watching, everyone. Of course, as always, massive shout out to Preach. Absolutely incredible job. And yeah, go check out the full VOD over on his channel. I'm sure everyone watches Preach anyway. So there's not really much point in me promoting him, but like you already have seen it. Anyway, whatever. We will anyway. He deserves it. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.